This is Golden Years, a roadmap to navigate retirement with Mark Cordner, the podcast.
Welcome to the show. This is Golden Years, a roadmap to navigate retirement. If you're new to us, welcome. We appreciate you joining us. My name is Jessica. I am, of course, here with Mark Cordner of Golden Years Financial. Mark, my friend, how you doing, man?
No, I'm doing great. I'm excited about this new year. It feels like I should be saying it's 2021, but it's 2025. Go figure. I don't know where the last few years have gone.
I know. I feel like we blinked and all of a sudden 5 years passed. And it's always weird. You know, back in the days when we actually used to write checks, remember you'd have to write a check for a month before you put the correct year on it. And now just saying 2025 is like, I don't know. It's just so strange.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel my age because the other day I was thinking about all the anxiety that we had before the year 2000, you know, the world stopping because computers couldn't work. And now I'm thinking 2025, where in the world did that 25 years go?
No.
But that's a great lesson for pre-retirees, isn't it? Things sneak up on us while we're busy living.
That's right. I mean, time is flying by, folks. I mean, it is incredible. I mean, you're working so hard, you have your head down, and you know, the beginning of the year is always kind of slow to kind of kicking up back in routines and whatnot, and maybe some changes at work or whatever's going on. And then before you know it, it's summer, and then we're jumping in back into fall. And then we're doing this whole song and dance all over again. And I tell you what, doesn't matter who you are. The biggest question that all of us have is, have I done enough? Have I saved enough? And oh, by the way, hey, Mark, how do you make sure I don't run out of money? Well, you know, on the show, we've talked a lot about annuities and how they offer guaranteed income for life that can cover basic expenses in retirement. But the question is, who should you buy them from? Well, here's annuity advocate Cheryl Moore with winkintel.com.
If you're talking with somebody about annuities and they can't answer your questions about how it works, what it's good for, why you might want it, if they don't listen to what you're saying, those things are red flags for me.
I mean, that's a red flag for me any day of the week talking about anything.
Yeah,
I'm trying ordering dinner and the waiter is not paying attention to me. I'm going, what am I doing here? Not to mention, talking about my money and my income. And Mark, quite frankly, this isn't how you do business. You're very attentive. You're very involved in the process. And it's all about making sure that you are helping your clients make these decisions that are best for them.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, Cheryl does a lot of good work in the industry, so I appreciate her comments there. We just had a training with our team here recently where we talked about annuities, and one of the challenges that people find is that there's so many people pushing annuities inappropriately. An annuity is simply a financial tool like any other vehicle that people might use to grow their money or safeguard their money, but they are incredibly unique. There really is nothing else like them, and because they tend to pay commissions more up front than over time, like some financial products, there's a real people out there just pushing them inappropriately. And so we got to remember a size 10 doesn't fit everyone. And there are literally thousands of variations on this. I mean, there's a couple thousand life insurance companies in the country that offer these products, and they all have different types. I mean, there's income annuities and there's growth annuities are two different purposes, one for safeguarding the money, the other for creating income you can't outlive, and there's nothing that can compare with what they do. But there's also so many bells and whistles on these different products. I mean, we got a product now that was just introduced that actually helps close the gap with Social Security if Social Security were to be cut. I mean, there's some really creative things out there, and so I think she's absolutely right. You need to deal with someone who is very experienced in these matters, preferably who does a fair bit of volume in that respect, so they have a lot of experience. But most importantly, I think they don't just represent one company, because often you'll find these often younger agents or people who are just in for a quick buck who only represent one company, and so they don't know what they don't know. There was a time 32 years ago when I was in that crowd. I remember the managers that recruited me who literally said that there's not a lot of difference from one company to the other. Well, oh my heavens, were they wrong? I mean, they were flat out dishonest in their recruiting of me as a young agent. And so I'm so grateful that over the years I've had exposure to literally hundreds of companies and thousands of products. And so the computer age makes it easier. Now we can sift through and we can find the products that are the best fit for the client's specific goals. And how do you know their specific goals? Well, just like you were saying, you got to ask questions. You got to listen. You've really got to listen because a size 10 does not fit everyone. And there are wonderful, wonderful things happening in this marketplace. I mean, the last 4 years, we've seen record-breaking numbers in this industry of money being moved into annuities. And you simply have to ask yourself, why? Why are consumers doing that? Obviously, they're seeing that there are unique advantages. And again, it's not where you put all your money. It's not a panacea. It's not the single solution to everything, but they are absolutely unique, and you need to understand what you're buying before you commit to anything, especially in this matter of lifetime income. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be dealing with a company that you're going to regret in your 90s. You need to deal with someone that's strong, that's financially viable, and that is going to be able to deliver on the promises they're making, because these are insurance contracts. They're basically performance contracts, performance guarantees that you need to make sure the companies can follow through on. So I think it's a sacred trust. And if people don't know about these issues, and frankly, most people don't.
I guess going on top of this guaranteed income conversation, you mentioned Social Security just a few moments ago. Social Security can be seen as a lifetime gift that just keeps on giving. Kind of like when you were a kid and you're looking forward to unwrapping the presents under the tree, right? We just got out of the Christmas season. So think back to all that excitement. Well, retirees, they look forward to claiming that monthly benefit when they can take Social Security. However, deciding when to unwrap your Social Security gift can make a big difference financially. So, Mark, break this down for me here. How can you help clients strategize about the best time to maximize their gift over a lifetime?
Well, we've got some pretty sophisticated software to help. I actually have specialists on retainer that can help me when there's questions I can't answer, because Social Security is complicated. There are hundreds of different ways you can claim, and you really do need this sophisticated software to make the best decisions. But the reality is you can choose any time between age 62 and age 70 to claim if you're eligible in the system. And the longer you wait to claim, the greater the payout. I mean, it is an annuity is what it is, for all intents and purposes. And so you need to understand the different variations, especially if you're married. There are different considerations that can make a world of difference to the widow. And I deal with a fair bit of widows, and you got to understand how those things work. And so we do a free Social Security analysis for people. We'll do that software. You can get these services online for $100, $200 or so. We'll do it for free for people to help them out, to help them understand what they can expect. Because at the end of the day, this boils down to predictable income. Everybody wants predictable income. I read a study this weekend from the American College that was it was talking about annuities specifically, but it was referring to the fact that people want to know what kind of income they're going to have in retirement, because once you know that number, then you can build your lifestyle around it. And in the absence of a predictable number, what happens is you feel like you're on a string and you have to make adjustments every month based upon what's happening in the global economic situation, and the stock market and all these variations that we can't control. People don't want that. People want predictability in retirement so they can focus on the non-financial issues that are most important. Kids, grandkids, service in the community, church, whatever it is that's important to you. It's not the financial things, but the annuities and Social Security give us predictable income. And predictable income means less stress in retirement. It also means that we're going to live longer. There's actually studies that prove that people live longer and are certainly happier when they have predictable income. And that's what Social Security is.
Real quick, I have to address the elephant in the room that folks have been talking about for a long time, even more so with President Trump soon to take office here, in just weeks, really. Social Security, do you think it's going to disappear in 10 years? And with some of the things that President-elect Trump has talked about with Social Security, do you think that could even be sooner? Some are saying even 6 years.
Well, I don't see it collapsing. I mean, we absolutely have precedent in 1983 for this, because for those of us who are old enough to remember, we recall how President Reagan and Tip O'Neill, the leaders of two different political parties, came together in those final moments, because within months they were expecting Social Security benefits to have to cut. There was talk of bankruptcy and all this kind of stuff. So as a general rule, I reassure people, particularly once they're over 50, that Generally, changes to the system are going to affect people younger. It's always talking about people close to retirement not being affected. But we have precedent from 1983. When they came together, they made changes to the Social Security system. They made a portion of the benefits taxable. They prolonged how soon a person became fully eligible from 65 to 67, for example. So there's changes like this that can be done again, maybe extend out the benefit to age 70 for full retirement age, for example. There's things that can be done. I'm not worried about the viability of the program. There's things that can be done. They know what needs to be done. It's really having the political willpower to do it. Now, I'll be candid that as much as I like many things that the incoming president is saying, I get a little bit scared when he's said straight out he's not going to deal with Social Security. He wants to make the benefits taxable.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's going to be repercussions for that. But again, I don't want people out there questioning if that security is going to be there for them, because I'm absolutely convinced it is. It's basically a sacred institution. The politicians aren't going to give up on that.
Sure.
They're too scared of people coming to Washington with pitchforks.
Now, we have seen the stock market. It has been red hot, a lot of people are saying. And the question is it the best place to put your money? Well, that's a question Yahoo Finance posed to hedge fund investment officer Karen Carnile-Tambor. This is what she said.
So I think there's a lot of reason to believe that the stock market has room to run, and that the most negative aspect is, valuations have gotten somewhat stretched, but not that stretched. In the most stretched corners of the market, when you look at things like AI, valuations have gone up somewhat, but also to a large extent have kept up with actual earnings increases. On the other hand, what you can't ignore is that people's exposure to the stock market today is radically different than normal. People are very, very exposed to the stock market. So almost any portfolio I look at, what you see is that almost any source of diversification people used to have has really eroded because you've had such a run.
All right. So let's break this down, Mark. She said a lot there. So how do you help clients stay diversified when market conditions are unpredictable? I mean, let's face it, it is the market. It goes up, it goes down, it is unpredictable. And the stock market is soaring. How do you kind of weigh this to find the good balance there?
You're right. She brought up a lot of great points, and we have to acknowledge that the stock market has been the greatest wealth builder known to man, basically. We've seen incredible runs in the last few years. I have to always caution people. We got to be very careful about not trying to predict where the market's going to go, because we flat out don't know. It's like standing on the beach and trying to predict where the waves are going to hit and how high they're going to be. We just don't know, because there are impacts happening many, many miles from shore that have a ripple effect that we can't comprehend as mere mortals, particularly in a fully integrated global economy like we're in now. I'm incredibly optimistic about the future, because I think we're seeing advances at a rate that has never been known to humankind. And our lives are so much better than any previous generation in history. And yet with that comes it's the ebb and flow. There's going to be downsides as well. And so we have to absolutely anticipate market drops. We need to build a portfolio that can sustain whatever comes. And there's ways to do that. And there's ways to design a portfolio so that it behaves within certain guardrails, which you as the investor, as the client, get to decide. And we can design things around that. We absolutely, though, have to integrate that with principal protected options, because when the market goes down, as it invariably will, we need to have a safe pocket of money into which we can reach so that we can still maintain our lifestyle without gross interruption, while we basically buy time for the market to recover.
Mm-hmm.
So we can pull money from the markets when they're up, and we do not want to pull money from the markets when it's down, because that has a accelerating effect on the depletion of the account. It's what we call sequence of return risk. We have to be very careful, particularly in the 5 to 10 years before retirement, and certainly the 5 years after retirement. And so I've always advocated a two-pocket approach. We can design a portfolio that fits your circumstances, and we integrate into that safe money strategies so that, again, you can go live your life. You don't have to think about these issues. But we also have to acknowledge human behavior in this, because there are anxieties. And the norm for most people that we work with as they get into their 60s and certainly 70s is their emotional and psychological makeup requires them to, it just brings them to a more preservation mindset than they've known previously. I think that this Karen was correct. People right now are disproportionately aggressive in the market. We're seeing that as we review people's portfolios. We're surprised. People, for the most part, often don't understand where their money's at. And so, again, it all underscores these safe money strategies I've been talking about so much. So, yes, meet with a professional. If you don't understand these things, deal with people who have the training, who have the tools. I mean, there's so many computer analytics that we can use nowadays to help people get a clearer picture on where their money's at and where it should be.
You know, the famous Warren Buffett still talks a lot about investing. I mean, he is 94 years old, and he is now sharing his thoughts on estate planning as well. Here's what his advice is. He says, create a will and have your children read it before you sign it. You must talk about your wishes before you die. If you want money to go to charity or maybe to help one child more than the other, basically, it shouldn't be a surprise after you die. So this is a conversation folks don't want to have, right? None of us want to think about when we're not here. And, you know, it's a weird conversation divvying up assets and money to your favorite child or maybe not your favorite child, et cetera. So I know this is a big deal. Parents are usually really private about that. How do you kind of navigate this conversation?
Boy, this is a big deal. We talk constantly about this with our clients because the odds are that most of our clients are going to end up with some money that's going to pass on to others. Mm-hmm. They're not going to live through it all. And so there does need to be these family meetings. I'm a big advocate of family meetings. And, you know, just because you're sharing this information with the kids, like Warren Buffett is recommending, doesn't mean that the kids have the final vote. I mean, this isn't a committee decision. It's the money owner's decision. But to have the beneficiaries of their lifetime of work understand what may be coming to them and how they should perhaps interact with that money, I think is very important. You know, I've told before how my own father had a family meeting for years. I had been after him, and he finally called the family together. We all met up in a small town a couple hours north of Las Vegas, and he had this meeting. And his new wife, you know, my mother had passed away. His new wife was there, so it was a good opportunity for people to understand what Dad was thinking. And he said things in that meeting that literally had my sisters sobbing because they realized that there were certain things that they just didn't want to deal with. And they were so grateful that my dad had thought through some of these things. He said, for example, that Mark is going to be the one that pulls the plug. As harsh as that sounds, you know, I don't know what that says about me, but it was an absolute relief.
I guess. I mean, gosh.
But it was an absolute relief to my sisters because they couldn't do that. They also talked about, you know, what kind of care does he want at the end? What kind of money may the children potentially expect? What's going to go to his new wife and so on? These kind of things are really important to discuss because families can be absolutely torn apart after the fact. And the other thing to recognize is that equal is not always fair. You know, I have a child with special needs and you know, many people are in situations where they have to think differently about some children than others. And, you know, are they going to receive a lump sum benefit, or are they going to receive income for life? If they receive an inheritance, will it disqualify them from medical benefits they need from the government? There's all sorts of issues like this. And the only way to deal with it is to have the conversations well in advance of the stroke, because after we've had a stroke, we can't communicate our wishes.
Yeah.
And so people think I'm joking when I tell them that, you know, I've told my kids, my kids are sick to death of hearing me talk about this kind of planning, but, you know, I've been very clear with them about some of my preferences. I don't want a female nurse, for example. I'm a traditional kind of person. I don't want to blush because some strange woman is bathing me when I'm in my 80s. You know, let some poor schmuck do that, but you know, I don't want a female nurse.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and pay the poor guy well. But the money has been set up to do those kind of things. And again, if you don't have these conversations, it goes well beyond just the will and the trust. The attorney can codify, they can put into the documents certain instructions, but there's some non-financial elements that absolutely have to be discussed. So if you haven't had a family meeting with your adult children, especially in blended families, you know, I beg you, please do that. Please do that. At the end of the day, it's about relationships. It shouldn't be about money. And the worst thing in the world is to see money divide up families. So have your family meetings. If you need help with this, come visit with us. There's a number of tools, books, workbooks, and things that we share with our clients to help these conversations. And I can tell you, I've actually been asked to sit in on some of those family meetings. And I can think of one case particularly, a woman from my neighborhood where, you know, I met her as a teenager. She later became a client. And we had her adult daughters come in, girls that I had known when they were 2 and 3 years old. And they were able to see how incredibly well their single mom had prepared, far better than their very high-profile father. This single mom had done a phenomenal job. And it was absolutely cathartic to see the admiration that these girls had for their mother in that moment. I get a little worked up here years later thinking about it. have family meetings. I beg you, please, get your families together. It's a wonderful thing. And the more you do it, the better you'll feel, the closer you'll be as families.
Yeah.
Investment advisory services offered through Golden Years Financial LLC, a registered investment advisory firm. Insurance is offered through Golden Years Insurance Services. These firms do not provide legal or tax advice. Consult your own legal and tax advisors before taking actions that may have tax implications. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Insurance contracts principal protection is based on the claim-paying ability of the respective insurer. None of the information contained on this website shall constitute an offer to sell or solicit to buy a security or insurance product. The information and opinions contained on this site or requested from this site are provided by third parties believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. They are provided for informational purposes only and are not a solicitation to buy or sell any of the products mentioned. Any media logos and or trademarks contained herein are the property of their respective owners, and no endorsement by those owners of Mark Cordner, Golden Years Financial, or Golden Years Insurance is stated or implied.